All right, welcome to the Rabyd Nation. And this is the Rabyd Atheist. I am your host, Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to the channel and welcome to Deconversion Hangout. A few special rules about Deconversion Hangout. This is a place for people who are deconverting or are interested in deconversion. To have a place where they can talk about it, they can address issues, things like that. And as such, you have to be a subscriber to the channel to participate in chat, and you have to be that for at least 20 minutes. That gets rid of my drive-bys and a lot of theists that like to talk and overtalk us and make trouble. And if you're a theist and you have a respectful question to ask about deconversion, I will absolutely take that. So that's not the issue. So we're continuing to do that. So just be respectful of that. There's also a goal in chat. That's just my very quiet, unobtrusive way of asking for money to keep the streams going. And and so there's a goal in chat. And if we reach that goal, there's a hat that you can choose in the poll that I will wear. And so that is very, very important to do. Deconversion issues. I know everybody's probably got their mind more on other things like Charlie Kirk and other things, but I've always had problems with this issue because I remember when I deconverted, one of the things that people ask me, are you now pro this, pro that, anti that, whatever? And I'm like, I'm still working through the issue that my imaginary friend is gone. Okay. And it's one of the reasons I'm incredibly patient, I think, with theists at times, is because I realize that this is a process. And part of that process is going through the various issues of the world, examining it for yourself, and coming to your own conclusions. And that, to me, is, it's very important to allow people time and space to do that. I have a strong reaction to, like, if somebody's still going through a deconversion process, or I'm not really even sure when that ends, by the way, how that works. So I know that the irony of the Charlie Kirk situation for me this week, and it's been a deconversion issue for me, is I literally just watched on Monday Charlie Kirk get dismantled by, I think it was Cambridge University students just like dismantled him in a forum, and it was Rationality Rules with doing a two-part breakdown, and I was listening to that at work on Monday. And so, and I was thinking earlier in this week, I haven't done Charlie Kirk in a while. And so it was just kind of ironic in a way, or coincidental, that this happens. But I think I'll probably forego doing any reaction videos to Charlie Kirk out of respect for his kids more than anything else. But I think it would be in bad taste at this point. So there you go. Let's get a roll call, though, before we get too far. Just kind of setting the tone there, I guess. Fred is here. Outstanding, Fred. Katie's here. Rimmer is here. Good to see you, Rimmer. You've been absent. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Evan is here. Martin is here. Azho's here. Anne Marie is here. Martin, I think I already got Martin. Keep going down the list. Wolf is here. Blossom is here. Welcome, Blossom. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. My poli-sci degree is going off with that one. So, so that's kind of your thing. I think that's everybody. Okay. Now, so yeah, I want to get to Blossom's thing here. The one deep deconversion issue that applies here is when you get rid of your God view, you suddenly realize that human beings are very responsible for what happens. And that becomes an incredibly scary moment because there is no big brother going to fix it if it goes horribly south. The problem with assassinations, now in this particular case, I wrote about it on my own personal Facebook. I suppose I should share it here. I am a libertarian who practices the non-aggression principle. I do not believe in political violence as any kind of legitimate means. No matter how much you hate somebody, dislike somebody, what they say in their speech, killing them is just not an option. Okay, it just isn't for me. The best way to handle really bad speech like Charlie Kirk would make is to counter it with your own speech. That's what public discourse in an open society is all about. I'm also a Stoic who, when Charlie Kirk says something like empathy is icky or some new age bullshit that he said about it, that human empathy somehow is a detriment to us, I'm not going to be like my enemy at that point. And yes, I did consider Charlie Kirk an ideological enemy. I'm not going to be like him. And my heart goes out to his kids. They're too young for me to think a lot of things about them. They just know dad's not coming home anymore. And that's going to hurt for a while. And, you know, my heart goes out to his widow. I can have empathy where he would have encouraged me not to. Okay, so I'm not going to become like my enemy. I'm going to rise above that and be better than my enemy. In this particular case, I think showing empathy is probably the best way to do it. From a deconversion point of view, because this is Deconversion Hangout and I try to stay on topic despite chat trying to derail me, you have to process how you feel about people who disagree with you, especially as an atheist. I have a lot of people that disagree with me about God. But I also know what it's like to be a person who believed in God and know that it's a process of getting out. So that's kind of my thing. So you're going to do Ron Wyatt? I'm sorry. I don't know if there'll be a civil war over this. Not yet. That's why a lot of experts, Katie, are talking about this guy being a professional. And it's not just because of the shot. It's because he entered the campus very low key and got away with it. He took his shot, single shot, and then he left low key without getting caught. In fact, they're still trying to find him. Okay. That's either a professional or somebody who's really thought about what they're doing. Okay. And made a plan. Okay. So it's it's definitely planned out. Like there's no, and the person had a great deal. A 200-meter shot isn't like incredible, but it takes a lot of confidence to know that you can nail that in one go without thinking about it. So definitely a practice shooter. So I had you may have chronic. Oh, dude. Yeah, I'm not going to give you thoughts and prayers, of course, but hopefully you have some good doctors working on that and some good healthcare professionals. But yeah, my heart goes out to you, man. Yeah, I mean, we're sending hugs. So it seems likely given the symptoms. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I like to be able to ask him why he doesn't believe in the Genesis one. Hey, Earl, good to see you. Mighty Philbert, good to see you. Thanks for the song yet. I actually, I'm working on another intro for my videos, and I'm using the other parts of the other song for that. So thanks for both. Listen, it's not about sympathy, man. It's about human empathy. It's about, because someday, remember, I could be going through something like that. And I at least want the human beings in my life to say, hey, man, that hurts me too, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, the issue of human empathy as somebody who's deconverted is paramount to me because I think human empathy really plays a lot into morality. It's not the only thing that plays into morality, but when somebody is hurting or sick in our society, how we react to them is very important, I think. So, no, beans hurts. One chromosome breaks off and attaches to the tail of another chromosome. Ugh. Hey, Earl. So there's that. Um, I don't know. I have struggled deconverting over the years with empathy. As somebody who's autistic too, I have other struggles with it. Mostly that I can have a lot of empathy for somebody, but I don't show it. I don't have the ability to show it as well as other people do. So sometimes it really bothers me. Yes, he did do that, and that's kind of the like I had a friend of mine who's conservative, but not completely, who wrote a post today about if you can't show empathy towards it. And one of the people in the chat said, "Well, but Charlie Kirk said this about empathy." Okay, so it's like, does Charlie Kirk want you to want his opponents to show him empathy, saying he didn't really believe in it? I believe that empathy is humanity's greatest strength. Like when you look at it, it's what's caused us to band together and fight things that were different than us that threatened us. So you might even say that if there's a good side, a good motivation for tribalism, which I don't think there is very much good ones, empathy is one of those things that I think if like something's harming your people and you decide to band together and stop the harm because of your human empathy towards that person, I don't think that's a bad thing. Okay, I don't think that's a bad thing. Yeah, that's kind of what I said earlier, Earl, today. I'm sad for his wife because she's going to go through some shit just as a human being losing a husband. And I'm sad for his kids because that's shit for the kids. I don't have any empathy for Charlie. Okay, he had trouble having empathy for his opponents, and to demand empathy for him when he was kind of shit about it. It's like, dude, you're asking me to have empathy for a guy who didn't really believe in it, believe it was a good thing. So I just don't, I don't know what to do with you at that point. I'm not happy that he's dead. I'm not sad about it either. Because the problem, as I said, I think the host of the Damn Network is one of my Facebook friends. I wrote to his post. Um, the problem with cutting off these political figures' heads is two more grow. It's like a hydra, two more grow in their place. Like there's going to be another person that replaces Charlie Kirk. Okay, it will happen. Okay, there's always that voice that spews that stuff. Now, my problem with Charlie Kirk, of course, as an atheist, is a lot of his stuff was based in Christianity, based in the Bible. Although I really am wondering how much Bible knowledge he had after watching Rationality Rules with Cambridge's a couple Cambridge students taking on Charlie Kirk, how much Bible knowledge he really had. Like I think he was just accepting a lot of what his pastor said. So there's that. Yeah, it's very part and parcel to human solidarity. Okay, like I can relate to that human being out. I have a lot of internal empathy, and it's been reinforced from being a pastor. Having to see, my problem is I've had to sit at the bedside of people dying and hold their hand while they're dying, and I've done that many, many times. And it's hard not to feel something as a human being when you have to do that. I'm glad to be away from it, because as a pastor, it started to really affect me negatively, personally, on a psychological basis. But I'm also very well aware that my empathy level is probably a lot higher because I've actually seen people suffer and die up close. So, yeah, and I absolutely relate to them. Like, I don't want to be there. Okay. So I don't know if that's necessarily emotionally true. You also need to realize that these kids are eventually going to get old enough to delve into who their father was, and they will do so. And they're going to, his son's going to run into that quote that Kirk made about how he hopes his son is a lot like Donald Trump when he got shot and shaking his fist into the air. That's a quote that Charlie Kirk made that is on record, and along with a lot of other bullshit. And his son is going to hear that eventually and make an assessment. Okay, so the thing about social media environment is these kids are going to have access to their father and what their father was a lot more, because there's tons of recorded videos, tons of recorded stuff of him doing his thing, tons of quotes. They're going to be able to delve into who their father was later in life. Okay, so I don't think his kids aren't going to escape what he believed. Okay, they're going to have it. Yeah, I don't know. I want to know who the shooter is, simply because I'm a poli-sci guy that studies. This is one of my autistic holes here, Earl. I study assassinations and the motivations of the assassin, because I find it a very interesting part of psychology that a person can get to a certain psychological point where either they will accept money to do it, or they have some sort of personal motivation to do it. What causes a person to go off that edge? And often assassinations are political. And so what political effect they had is interesting. So, yeah, I mean, me too. I'm terrified about that. Um, But I'm not going to make the same mistake that a lot of people made with, like, the Catholic school shooter. It's got to be some red hat MAGA wearing guy. All that, no, that wasn't true. Jumping to conclusion about an ideology of a shooter is always a horrible mistake, and I'm just not going to do that. Once they do find out what his ideology is, I think um, the problem with this is it looks very professional to me. Not super professional, but professional enough that either the person has done this kind of work before, which would make him ex-military, possibly, or um, is a hired killer, or is just very good at planning out this stuff and figuring it out. Because his exit strategy was top notch. He completely eluded the police. So, you know, that's the thing. You don't need Bible knowledge to the Bible for a prop of hate. And that's why I think bringing up Kirk works for today, isn't, because it's relevant. Yes, it is relevant to us as deconverted people, because we've gotten rid of the Bible. Okay, I've discarded the Bible pretty much as anything valuable. I know it too well. And Kirk, in those debates at Cambridge with those students, like, he talks about marriage in the Bible. And, like, are you completely flipping ignorant of all the things that the Bible says about marriage? And then he was cherry picking verses while completely ignoring others. Pretty typical apologist stuff. And then he gets cornered on something and he doesn't know the Bible verse. And so it's like, you say you've studied marriage in the Bible, but you haven't. You've heard what somebody else, your preacher, probably told you about it, and you're running with that. Or you have a very edited version of the Bible. Like, he tried to, like, we're under a new covenant, not an old. I said, that's a very new idea. And the New Testament writers certainly didn't view the Old Testament that way. Okay, they still felt it was valid. And I'm sorry, it got really bad. Like, I'm like, man, do I want to react to Charlie Kirk? Because it seems kind of easy to debunk. Um, at least in that particular context. So you don't have to know the Bible well. What you have to know well probably is what your church says about it. And then if you run with the assumption that your pastor isn't leading you astray or leaving anything out, like I studied marriage in the Bible. I have a 50-part series on my old blog, All Things Rabyd, about marriage in the Bible. And I looked at every single instance of marriage, things like that. Even the New Testament allows for polygamy. Okay. Not in church leaders, but if you're not a church leader, you can still marry more than one wife. There's no prohibition against a woman having more than one husband. I can't find it. There's a lot of things that are left out about marriage in the Bible, but he was running with the assumption one man, one woman in bonds of matrimony for life. And I'm like, the Bible doesn't indicate that that's what marriage is. Okay. So it's like, yeah. I'm seeing a super session. How I'm seeing an uber conservative members react. Yeah, it's going to hurt your head. You're going to get whiplash. I've even seen conservatives justifying political violence in return. I'm like, what the fuck, like you're decrying political violence while at the same time advocating for it. So I don't know. I'm kind of worried a little bit. My country has been on a powder keg ever since Trump was elected, and I'm just waiting for something to set it off. I really am. Have Dobson bad dads? Yes. Yeah, possibly. I just know that in our modern age with social media, these kids are going to be able to grow up and they're going to be able to access what their father said. Okay. They're going to have a lot more access than kids of the past to what their father said and what he did. So I'm not sure his influence on their ideology being gone is going to necessarily be the case. They may even come to martyrize him themselves in their own minds. Like my dad was killed because he stood for the truth, et cetera, et cetera. We can't assume. Okay, so yeah, it's not going to affect your day. I get it. For a lot of people, that's true. Okay, but it's not going to do it. So yeah, they usually do. That is pretty standard. See, the problem I have right now without knowing anything is I'm not going to make any assumptions because I had a friend, I shouldn't say, I had a scenario brewing in my head where somebody said, well, how could this be like a right winger? And my response is, look at the powder keg it's already setting off with right wingers who are assuming that it's a left wing guy. You can't buy that kind of propaganda. Okay. Is Charlie Kirk in somebody's mind expendable so that we can get some sort of ideological war? Possibly. You can't do it. So it's either somebody who knew what they were doing or figured it out, or it's a paid hit. Okay, there's a very good possibility it's a paid hit. Yeah, that was a hell of a shot. Okay, taking away from the fact that it took a human being's life, definitely a hell of a shot. Okay, I'm a guy who shot rifles. I like actually shooting rifles for fun sometimes. And I'm going to tell you, 200-meter shot like that, that's a hell of a shot for an average person. That's somebody who's either trained or well practiced or both. So, yeah, I get it. The emotional investment is hard. Sorry, there's a great deal of having shot rifles. There's a great deal of difference between games and actually doing it. There's a lot more to it when you're actually doing it. Games make it. I'm sorry, I've played a lot of first-person shooters, Blossom, and games make it easy to shoot. Okay, because otherwise players would complain. So. Actually was a religious fanatic who only had political motivations. The least thinkable option. Yes. When you look at a lot of these assassinations, sometimes you're like, why is that guy assassinating that person? So the debate level is low. Hey, Alex, good to see you. Yeah, It was never bunk. It was never up to that level. Yes, woohoo, polygamy. Yes, I mean the problem with Charlie Kirk's view on marriage is like he wanted to like divorce himself from all the Old Testament verses when it came to polygamy and all that stuff. Like there is a verse in the Old Testament that says you're not supposed to have sisters as wives. Like you can't have the older sister and the younger sister as a wife. Okay, which is really interesting since Leah and Rachel were sisters. Just another Bible inconsistency. But polygamy is very much part of the Old Testament system. Well, he wants to ignore all that. Okay, and but he still wants to uphold the Ten Commandments, and he still wants to pull the verse out that says men shouldn't lie together, and if they do, they should be stoned to death. Okay, so it's like, okay, you're cherry picking at that point what you want to be there, and so it was a nice one. I, as far as I can tell, the poly community is actually growing. Like, I'm going to tell you though, it seems to be kind of underground for the very reasons that you say. But I know there's like 3 houses in my town that I know of personally that fly the poly flag on their front porch. Okay, and so it tells me that there's more than 3 or more people living there that are having a good time. Okay, so or something. But yes, it's poly. It's the way the marriage and polygamy in the Bible works. Like women don't really have a choice about it. It's men that are making the choice about it. But I don't know. I don't know how much poly is growing or how popular it is, and even secular people seem to. You're right; they do kind of shun away from it. But you know, as Fangs would say, make it safe, make it consensual, and make it good. So outside those parameters, okay, I'm not sure really what we could do with that. So, the Church of Fangs being the official religion of the Rabyd Nation. So, that's kind of that. So, you know, possible martyrization in his. There is a possibility of that, Evident. That I mean, you got to remember they still have their mother, who is very much a devout Christian woman. Okay, so she's going to teach her kids that their father was murdered because of his political views. Okay, and that's going to very much affect them, and that's probably pretty true. So they're gonna. You got to remember, we grow up in an age of social media now, where people's words are recorded. This is something that Trump doesn't seem to realize. He like changes his story and doesn't realize that people can go back and pull out video of what he said just 2 weeks ago. So but we need to realize that all of Charlie Kirk's stuff is going to be preserved. It's going to be archived. It's going to be around. And when they get older, they're going to be able to access it. So, and if they're taught by their mother that this is some sort of martyrdom complex, they might gravitate to that. They might not. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I could write this story, Blossom, okay, being religiously experienced. And see what happened to all part of God. Well, see, the Christians have to accept the fact that the murder of Charlie Kirk was part of God's plan, which is always an ironic. Murder is against God's will, but allowing a murder to happen is part of God's plan. So, this is the kind of crap that leads you to deconvert. Okay, God works in mysterious ways, sending out thoughts and prayers. Well, where were the prayers to stop the bullet? Don't you guys believe in that sort of thing, or deflect the bullet, or cause the guy's aim to go off? Or, I mean, God could have saved Charlie Kirk's life if we're going to take the Christian God in a multitude of ways, but he didn't. So even if you take the free will defense and say God is, allowing people to make bad choices, then there's other ways that don't involve violating that person's free will that this could have been stopped, but God doesn't stop it. So God obviously wanted Charlie Kirk to die, knowing that it would happen. Okay, so now what? I mean, maybe it was to prevent him from converting to Catholicism because he was considering it, as I understand it. Yeah, I think he is expendable. He was expendable. He's young enough, and he's in a position, family wise and politically, where they can very much make him a martyr. So yes, a right wing kind of a person is still a possibility. Like, yeah, video games in real life are different. It's why I escaped the video games because they're not real life. But yeah, I let me put it to you this way: I played the old Medal of Honor things, and I have actually fired an M1. Okay, in real life, I'm going to tell you it's much easier in the game to fire an M1 than it is in real life. So, okay, it just is. The action would know it might just create a martyr. I wonder if someone might have wanted to do just yes. This is why I don't dismiss the right winger doing it. And that would be very embarrassing to a lot of people posting today, thinking it's a left wing person that they want us all dead. I've even seen. And it's like, I don't want anybody dead, quite frankly. And I'm very much more left than right, but it's like, eh. A military operation, Flashpoint, or whatever, has more realistic. Hey, Native. Yeah, is everybody's atoms okay? Thanks, Martin, for reminding us. Nobody has like interfered with your atoms or like gotten too close in your atom space. There we go. Once following Jesus is not a religion; it's a relationship. Just wondering if you viewed it more of as a relationship. I used to say that, Alex. The problem with that is the moment you say Jesus is a deity, you have a religion. Like based on the most technical definitions of religion, you have to have like a God. And if this person goes to church regularly and they'll sit there and say, yeah, it goes to church, I go to church regularly, it's a religion. Like if you have rituals, if you have various spiritual dogma and beliefs, you have a religion. And somebody, that very notion that salvation is a relationship with Jesus is a dogma. It's a doctrine. Okay. And so you have a religion. So they don't really know what they're talking about when people say that. Like I used to hear about no, when I was a Christian, I say, let's quit trying to get away from the term religion. Like, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? To me, at the time, it was neutral. Now I would say, being an anti-theist, I think when you look at religion, it definitely twists your brain. So, but this is a doctrine, and so it makes it a religion. Okay, so want to divorce himself while discussing marriage. It was intentional. Blossom, I always intend my puns. I am not a coward. I bravely intend my puns. I'm talking about marriage, and so I'm talking about divorcing yourself from certain ideas. Yes, it was absolutely intentional. Hey, Triple E. Yeah, there's also the Israeli thing. If it's a paid assassin, okay, that brings in international foreign issues too. Did somebody view Charlie Kirk as a threat to their nation or to some national movement within the nation is also a real possibility on the table. Until we know who the shooter is, you have to entertain that. So I get it. Like there was, I know like anti Israel people are just loving the fact that Charlie Kirk died. Like the pro Palestinian movement is just giddy, which is sickening to me. But as I've said before, there's no good guys in that conflict. So, and I'm not going to take sides because there's no good guys. Um, but yeah, that is one of the theories on the table. Remember that Israel got like there was also one that was put on the table that Israel might have been concerned because Charlie Kirk was about to be critical of what they just recently did, okay, or was starting to question Israel's motivations on a couple of things. So, there's another conspiracy theory to drop in your lap too. So, the weapon that was used. Yes, they think they found the weapon, so they don't. I would agree with that. Like, I think with poly, you really have to have women initiating the idea these days, because I think mostly because from the long history of poly being a male dominated thing where wives are treated like cattle. So you have to have women on board with poly that's what they want. They want that kind of situation. So yes, boinking. It's all about boinking. Hey, Michael, good to see you. I know I'm often joking about this. This is a dead serious. Are you on your videos are wiped off the planet, but Fang's book survived? You know, I don't know, Earl. You and me are writing this together. You're doing the illustrations. Do you have that fear as well? I would like to. Maybe you already have chatted that in. So uh, I don't know. I mean, if civilization is removed and my Fangs book somehow survives and somebody discovers it and creates a religion, how would I feel about that? I would hope. I mean, the thing about the book, though, Blossom, is I openly say, and like I'm going to probably openly say in introductions and appendices and all this other stuff, that this is a spoof on religion, and that my whole point is to illustrate how religion is garbage. And the character of Fangs is the one telling the stories himself or herself, or however you perceive Fangs. And so they are basically saying several times in the book, like, yeah, I'm just an imaginary deity made up to illustrate the silliness of a religion. So maybe I have some defenses in there for that. I think that might be so. So there was that. But yeah, I think I've got that covered, because somewhere in every story I say something to the effect of this just illustrates how silly this is. So I think the thing with Trump is that the less he doesn't, and the more that he doesn't care. Yes, yeah. Very sad career. I didn't watch him regularly. His death has shocked a lot of people. I know he didn't deserve that. Yeah, I don't think either he deserved it either. But I feel sorry for his family, Goodman, as well. We were just talking about that earlier. So, you have an M1 carbine? Go play the old Medal of Honors and see which is easier to do. Fire that thing as much as you would fire it in Medal of Honor. I'm sorry, I've done the same too, Katie, and I'm going to tell you it's a hell of a lot easier to fire one of those things in a game than it is in real life. Okay. It's not that you can't get good at it and fire it with relative ease. It's just it takes a lot more work to do that than when you're playing a character in a game. So it's my only point. So I am not happy about him dying. I think every time you cut the head off of something like this, it grows more heads. It leads to more activism down that direction. Political assassinations almost always have a very disastrous effect on humanity. Okay, one way or another. Either it creates, like now, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Turning Point USA is going to up in membership. There's going to be more of those, and the other minor leaders in Turning Point USA, somebody's going to rise to the top and be just as bad as Charlie Kirk because they believe what Charlie Kirk believed. So it's not going to solve the problem. Assassinations very rarely solve the problem. They just escalate violence. So, and so, yeah, I am worried about that. So, so, according to Catherine's thing on my ass, and it's possible. Like the thing with a lot of these guys is they move branches of Christianity. I don't know if he was actually considering it, honestly, Mighty Philbert, but it I know that it could have been politically motivated because he was starting to be a little critical of Israel and where he had been like gung ho with everything they were doing. And so there's a conspiracy theory out there already that Israel had him done in because he was starting to change his tune on them. Like, I don't know if to Israelis that Charlie Kirk was all that important. Okay, like this is one of those things where Americans like think, oh, I'm famous in America, so I must be famous worldwide. No, there's probably a lot of people in the world that maybe know that President Trump exists, but the rest of the political mechanizations in America, they don't give a shit about. So, and they don't know who people is. The lefty is ignoring the fact that every single political, yeah, I mean, not all of them. Okay. I think I've heard that from both sides. Like every left, all these shooters are right wing motivated, and then you'll get the right. All these shooters are left wing motivated. I'm like, I've been looking at shooters lately, and it's kind of a mixed bag. I don't really see it. So yeah, it's you have to reserve judgment and not shoot off your mouth. Too many pundits want to get out there and be first to be right about who this is, and then they're going to be wrong, and then they're going to have to either apologize or they won't, and then they'll lose credibility. So it's always better to wait and get some real information. Having a relationship with an invisible being, will it be all one-sided? If the invisible being actually existed, it'd be kind of fun. You can get away with a lot more that way. Air God, there we go. Yeah, a lot of people don't know who he is. Hey, Dave, how you doing, Dave? You doing better? Is Saturday night with the Atheists on? Saturday, I need something to do. Actually, I'm doing my own stream, of course, and then I'm gonna go hang out with Asho and Earl for a while. So after that, so I don't know if he was important enough. I mean, Michael, you live in Germany. How important is Charlie Kirk to you as a German? Okay, I think Americans have this ego thing where they think if they're famous in America, they must be famous everywhere else. And it's like, no, no, you're not. It could be argued that if his ideas are followed, but that's the problem. Like, if you take any idea and follow it to an extreme, it can be a problem. I'm very much a non-aggression principle kind of guy. I don't do violence to people unless it's in defense of other people's rights. And I don't know, to me, the proper response is always in kind. If somebody is passing out bad ideas, my job is to present better ideas against their bad ideas, not claim that he's now. Don't get me wrong. Some of the things he said, like we should do to gay people, like they did in the Old Testament. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, you have a valid point then. Okay, so yeah, so there's that. Palestinian confused. Yes, they do. They confuse me too. Like Palestinians aren't any better. I'm sorry. I just don't. This whole conflict, I said very at the beginning of it, like I don't see any good guys. I don't see anybody winning, and I just don't see how this whole conflict is valuable to humanity. There's a definite religious motivation underpinning all of this, and I don't see how we're going to make this work. So. Let's see, where is it at? Yeah, 2000. It depends on how you look at it. Like if his ideas were followed, some people would be in danger. Okay. Like LGBT community, he was very much gay. I mean, the guy basically said that black people were better off in the 1940s before the Civil Rights Act. If we went back to the 1940s, I think minorities would be in danger. Okay, without the Civil Rights Act for them to access. So I don't know. You got to look at it. I don't know that he directly put people in danger, but a lot of his ideas certainly would, if implemented, would have put people in danger. So thankfully, I don't think most of them have been implemented. So Fred has a wrench. Yes. You'll be proud of your legacy. I'm assuming you're referring to if our book is found 1,000 years from now and it starts a religion. I honestly, Earl, I chuckle about the very thought of it. But like, you've already gotten the 2 chapters of it, I think. And that I've kind of put in there that Fangs is like, always points out that he's an atheist deity that draws strength from unbelief in God. So, and that religion, I think in the last chapter I said, I'm just an imaginary deity created by my creators to illustrate how silly religion is. I think I have a direct quote on that, but it's like, I'm going to do that in every chapter. He's going to say Fangs is going to say something about, how religion is silly. So if 1,000 years from now they discover the misadventures of Fangs as a book, they're going to get that message pretty front and center. So he did do calls to actions too. So, I mean, you could argue this way too. Michael, being a German, makes a valid point. How did Goebbels put people in danger? Did Goebbels ever actually kill somebody? I don't know if he did, but he sure promoted ideas that got people killed. So, yeah. It's food. Okay. I get it. But there's a risk with that. I mean, what is the one sci-fi book? The Canticle for Leibowitz is it? I think that's the name of it, where you have this monastic order in the future that's preserving technical schematics. So that question has been asked in many, many times. So yeah, how your legacy is viewed. I don't think I can worry about how my legacy is viewed. It's going to be viewed the way it's going to be viewed. I don't have any control of that. And so I'm going to focus on what I can control, which is to point out chapter after chapter in this book that religion is silly. Okay, so that's kind of my motif. Leave it vague enough so it could be the next L. Ron Hubbard. Oh, this is the real problem of creating a cult, isn't it, Earl? Really. Well, he did say that gay people should be handled like the Old Testament handled them. I have a quote on that one. Like when he was confronted with that verse, he said, "That's the unadulterated word of God, and it should be followed." So, is that not an advocation for violence against gay people? That's why I get Saint Deluded's point. Okay, like it's there. He's not like Goebbels in the fact that he's not head of a propaganda wing of the state that was run by a madman dictator. Okay, but damn close. He sat on the stage with one. So I don't know. I do Dragon Rider. I have a lot of concern because, and the funny thing is, you see right wingers saying political violence has no place, and then they turn around in the next breath saying these liberals need to be shut down, whatever. And it's like, okay, so it's only bad when somebody does it to you. So, yeah, I don't think anybody should be murdered like that either. So, yeah, he did advocate for gay people to be stoned to death, just like in the Bible. He did do that. Okay, so to say he didn't, you need to, it's a good delve into some of his more controversial quotes. Like he has some winners. So you can. He talked about the congressman or whatever were killed the other month. Not like this. Yes. A lot of liberals have been bringing that up. Well, where was this concern and empathy for people by you guys when one of your people was when one of our people was killed? Where was the concern about political violence then? Both Obama and Gavin Newsom came out with decrying of Charlie Kirk as it has no place in our society. So you actually had liberals decrying a right winger's killing. But I'm having a hard time remembering somebody of note calling out the Democrat killing, like when two people were killed, when the Congresswoman and her husband were killed. Nothing. Okay, so. Okay, so. Multi-person boinks, you're correct. When a woman approached me, things went great. If the man approached me, I was calling a cab at 3 a.m. Okay. I would say political violence is much older than January 6th. And I don't, if the election had actually been stolen and there was evidence for it, I'm not against, in spirit, revolting against the government that cheated. Okay. That's, you can disagree with me on that, but there comes a point when the government is doing violence to its people, you have to stand against that. And sometimes the only way to stand against it is physical. So, I mean, politics really has threat of force behind it all the way anyway. Okay, that's what a good libertarian like myself will tell you. Remind yourself that every law is backed up by a gun, and then you'll realize what's the issue is. If you don't comply with the law, there are consequences. So even if the law is unjust. So. I feel a lot of remorse for his kids. They don't know any better. Okay, to them, Charlie was just dad. They're too young. They're too young to have a sophisticated view of their father or know what his father was up with. They just knew daddy was gone every once in a while, doing stuff and making money, and would come home on occasion. So I don't. We could talk about whether I should feel sad for the widow. I do, because it's not really her business. So I don't know. They will make him a martyr. It's already starting to happen. You can already see it. Yeah, was that Oxford or Cambridge? I can't remember, but I was watching Rationality Rules takedown of that just Monday. Literally, Michael. I'm like, I'm thinking, man, I haven't reacted to Charlie Kirk in a while. I wonder if I should. And I'm listening to what he did, and I'm like, yeah, it was a miserable debate for Charlie. He got slaughtered. Like, those kids had information and knew what they were talking about and had great debate techniques, and he did not. When he can control an event, when he could control an event and control the narrative, he was always perceived as good because there was nobody to really counter him. And it's very easy to take on college kids. I'm sorry, except for the ones in England, apparently. So, yeah, Mossad has a bad reputation for that. So, was all of them? And now they're talking about freedom. There was a congressman that did come out very hard against the opponents of Charlie, that we wanted to shut them down, and other Republicans reacted and said, no, that's not what Charlie. If you give Charlie Kirk one thing, he was very much a free speech advocate because his livelihood depended on it. He often took on people in his debates that he vehemently disagreed with and didn't like. And he never shut up, grab this guy, throw him out. So, he very much felt that the strength of his ideas would be promoted. The problem is it wasn't working. So, there was somebody that was going after him, said, we're going to shut these guys down and tell them, get them. And a whole bunch of Republicans said, that's not what Charlie Kirk was about. Whether that was accurate or not, they're like, no, this is the price of free speech, so. a shot at Trump was. Yes, I have looked into the tactics of Mossad before. It's been a while. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah, he did say that too, which means trans people would have been sent to an asylum and drugged until they were no longer trans. In other words, brainwashed. So we did a lot of shitty things in the 50s and 60s. Flew under the radar. Ain't got nobody. Citizenship for gay land wheels. I knew it was going to happen. I don't initiate violence. Sorry. The problem with getting aggressive and proactive is you often then violate somebody's rights. Okay, that's why non-aggression principle people will tell you that, like, you don't have to like what somebody says, but punching them in the nose for saying it, no. Okay. He was on the stage with President Trump. That's how famous he was. He was honored by President Trump several times for his work with Turning Point USA on college campuses. So he had to achieve that level of fame. Like, if the president of the United States is saying your name, you're at least known to him. So, yeah, Turning Point USA is very, very huge. Okay, let me make it simple for you, Triple E. Here, let me give you, let's see, I think I have the quote here somewhere. He said, referring to Leviticus 20:13, which calls for the execution of homosexuals, when he was asked about that, he said, God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters, is what he said. Leviticus 20:13 calls for the execution of homosexuals. And he said that it was God's perfect law. And what does that mean at that point? Like, he's saying that he supports that. Okay. Rather foolish to speculate, though, and somewhat dangerous. Trump and others should better than to start fires they can't put out. Yeah, he advocated for some horrible shit. Okay, if you want a good study, Triple E, go look up some Charlie quotes on LGBTQ, look up some quotes on civil rights, and go look at what he said and see if you agree with what he said, and how is some of that not advocating for violence against certain people groups. So, I think somebody should have called him to the carpet on it, but I don't think he should have been shot for it. So, yes, I get that too, that a lot of people aren't being harmed, but there's a lot of innocent people in Israel that have been hurt by Hamas too. So, and, the border invasion when Hamas kind of started this latest round and killed, 1,200 people that were innocent and had nothing to do with it either. Okay. I get that they're not all Hamas, but it's kind of like liberal Christians and fundamentalists. Liberal Christians may not do what fundamentalists do, but they don't call them out on it either. So, because it would make them look bad. Yeah, I don't get sad about I don't get happy about anybody dying, really. We have Martin for that. Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, cheering about somebody's death is kind of vile. Fangs of scripture would be cool. Oh, you don't even know what I'm writing. I'm going to tell you something so far. Given the 2 chapters I've written and some of the additions by Earl in the first, If this was found in the future, it would definitely be a boinking cult. Okay, there's going to be a lot of boinking in this religion, consensual boinking, safe boinking, and with an aim of good boinking, but there would be a lot of it. It's hard to get away from mythology and not realize how much sex is in it. Like, it's that. Yeah, in the U.S., it's kind of a question, isn't it, Pete? Like, I'm much more nuanced about this because I know that leftists have used some of the same statements too, only with different words. Like I've seen leftists advocating for the death of conservatives. So it's they're completely both sides use the phrase like enemy of democracy and the republic, and both sides use that. So you really have to do so. There's that. I don't know. Um, See, that you have a valid point. They could just be doing it because it's the thing they need to do. But I don't remember Trump doing it when the Democrat congresswoman was killed. Like, if it was about performing this, then somebody should have told Trump he needed to perform it, but he didn't. And Charlie Kirk said nothing about it. Like, he didn't go up one way or down another. Okay, so it's interesting from a right-leaning point of view that they're only outraged about this because it happened to one of their own. But when it happened to the other side, they didn't either said good or indifferent or didn't say anything at all. So yeah, there's a lot of political violence. I mean, Oklahoma City, etc. There's been a lot of political violence long before. Political violence is just part of society, which kind of sucks. Yes, I'm sorry if the government is being evil. The whole point the founding fathers made was it is perfectly right. I mean, they had just revolted against their own king, okay, and kicked him out. Okay, why wouldn't they be pro that if the government they created became dictatorial? Okay, they would absolutely do that. So, yeah, the ICE raids. This is, I mean, I didn't like Biden, but at least Biden was so passive that things were peaceful. Like, I don't remember this kind of chaos level before. Maybe it existed and I just wasn't expected. So, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm behind with a live chat. This is probably true. The problem is I take time to make commentary, and I want to think about it too. And doing a stream, anybody who's ever done a stream, when you're on the spot with a question, you have to make that pause and think about it. And so, at least if you want to be decent at it. So I'm a little bit behind, probably. Yes, I am very behind. I'm always behind. Yes, but who defines what's extreme, Bren? What if in a society extreme advocating for human empathy becomes an extremist position and so they shut you down? See, the problem with shutting down somebody's speech is then you give them the power to shut down yours. That's why free speech advocacy will always be a part of who I am. because the moment I say this person isn't allowed to speak and it becomes weaponized through governmental force, that same rule can be taken over by another political group and used against me. Free speech is dangerous. I get it, but I'd rather accept that than censorship. Censorship is more dangerous. So there are a bunch of those kicking the shins. The demons celebrate when I die too. I wish I could report it. You shouldn't be counseling children. I get that. As somebody who's deconverted from all that belief, I kind of laugh at it a little, and I don't mean to be laughing at the situation. I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm just laughing at the thought process that goes behind some of these people's brains. The demons celebrate when you die. What a delusion of grandeur this person has, that somehow God cares so much about them to bring them heaven, and the demons are going to celebrate when I die. How is this person a counselor? Okay, I would ask that question. As somebody who spent a year and a half in the educational system teaching, if some counselor said something like that, I'd be like, "Are you okay?" So, are you all right? What happened in the 50s and 60s? Segregation. Homosexuals were hung. They were lynched based on Leviticus 2013. I mean, there was no protections for minorities without the Civil Rights Act. I mean, the Civil Rights Act wouldn't have been necessary if people were actually treating people fairly. Like, that's the problem with law. Law usually comes out of necessity, not necessarily good morality, which is unfortunate. So kick him in the shin for years. To kick it in the shin. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but that's the thing. I don't, if you say something stupid and your company or whatever fires you, that's perfectly within their rights to do so. I mean, if you're going to do free speech, do it bravely and accept the consequences and don't bitch about it. Like, if you say something controversial and stupid and something happens to you because of it, I'm all down with that. Okay. Like, I'm not saying that people should just be allowed to say what they want without being countered. Okay. That's not free speech at all, because free speech is on the other side too. But the moment you censor somebody, you've created the power to censor. And if somebody, I mean, Biden and and Obama did a lot of executive orders that were controversial and eventually shot down by the Supreme Court. We're hoping the same with Trump, but it laid the groundwork for the idea that executive orders shouldn't be attached to the law. Okay. And so you create a precedent. It's like in the United States, the Senate has this filibuster rule that before something can be brought to a vote, they have to have 60% of the Senate saying it should be brought to a vote. If that's bypassed at some point, then you give the power to the other side when they're in charge to also bypass it. I mean, it's not a constitutional rule, but it has stopped a lot of bullshit. And that's the thing. You got to remember, just because you're in power and you create this rule and you censor certain things doesn't mean that somebody else can't come along, take that same censorship power and now use it for their agenda. So it's, whenever you create a political mechanism, remember that you have to think up here. Okay, if this isn't the power of my most hated enemy, would I like it? Okay. And if the answer is no, maybe you shouldn't create the power. Okay. It is strange, the level of outrage. Except in the case of all shootings, most shootings are preventable, to be fair. Most schools, having been on the school board, most schools don't think about security as highly as other things. I'll be fair, to be honest. And the same is true for universities, when they have public speakers, they don't really think about security all that well. Okay, you need security experts to go over school buildings and stuff like that, and a lot more is preventable than you think. Having been on a school board, and having called in a security expert to look at our buildings, that was true. Yeah, you would be, but there's always that ignorance. I don't know the full extent of a lot of people's crimes, and so I don't know if I should be more outraged at them or not. So I don't know. Do we give them a benefit of doubt or whatever? So yeah, they have the power to make it stop right now. They could literally make it stop if they wanted to. They were at the negotiating table and then left. Problem is, I think this latest round, Israel kind of fired first. So it's like, okay, but they also did. I mean, we can go back and forth forever on who started this thing. This thing is older than dirt, so there's just nothing. I don't see any good coming out of it. So ran out of room to cite. Been searching to find leftists promoting political violence. It's not hard to find it on the other side. The fact is, they both do it. And so taking a stand against all speech that incites political violence, yeah. But yes, the right. You got to remember, the right is. There's an element of we like to thump our chest and prove how strong we are. So yeah, I would grant that, but I also think like the way the left incites political violence is a little bit different. So you want a boring president again? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm down with I'm cool with Coolidge, because his whole thing was my job is to stop bad shit from happening. Okay, and bad legislation was top on his list. Like if he saw a bill cross his desk that he thought was bullshit, he would just veto it. And so, because of that attitude, he stayed in office for 8 years, and it's one of the most prosperous times in American history. It's when he got out and Hoover took his place that things started to take a nosedive. So, there you go. There's one to look at. So he wasn't great on other issues, but Coolidge was very good on minding his own business and being boring. So yeah, he also believed in the democratic process. And when the Supreme Court said he couldn't do something, he would back off. I'm not sure Trump's going to do that. So are we the bad guy in everybody's minds? I'm not sure. There are some very right-wing leaning states these days that might consider us to be. I mean, Trump did meet with Poland. I don't know the political situation in Poland, but there you go. Of course, they just had that attack from Russia hit them too. So, oh yes, I remember that. That was Charlie Kirk too, wasn't it? Automatically assuming because it's a black pilot, he was wondering if he was qualified. I don't know. He's sitting in the pilot seat. He's probably qualified. Yeah, it's kind of bad. I saw that coming in Texas too. I think I'm glad I got out of there. If I was still a Texas teacher, I'd be having massive problems with what's going on. So I'm kind of glad I left. Your dad's gravity isn't real. Okay, if gravity isn't real, tell him to jump to the moon. I got some across my feed. So I don't know. I don't know what news source you're using, but I definitely got some 9/11 stuff. So the funny thing is, though, like never forget. I don't see those. I see some memes like that, but not as much. It's kind of like December 7th, 1941. Never forget. We're starting to forget. Okay, as time goes by. I mean, it's 24 years ago. There are literally people that have been born after 9/11 that are now in their 20s. Okay. And so they have no knowledge of that day. Like there's a whole generation that that doesn't have that. And the same thing happened with December 7th, 1941, is as generations went by, these kind of tragedies get forgotten. And it actually happens a lot quicker than people think. I mean, you'll have a lot of people think about it and never forget, but I don't know. We we don't learn the lessons of history very well, Dragon Rider. I'm just going to say it. Probably. There's always fun going on here. Regular English people on the streets opinions, yes. I guess I would agree with that. To a theist, they act as if you're telling them they have an ugly face. I think that's the problem I have. Anne Marie, that is probably the most valid observation about theists after almost 6 years of doing YouTube. You question somebody's belief in it, they take it very, very personally. Okay. And from a deconversion point of view, I get it because I had to unravel my personal attachment to this, my emotional attachment to this. And so religion is one of those things that taps into your emotions and who you are. Like it's your whole philosophy of how you live your life. And so, yeah, when you attack their religion, it's like you're attacking part of who they are. So I get it. But at the same point, it's like you have to point out, listen, man, I'm just talking about your religious ideas. I ain't talking about you. You know, so. Yeah, and you're like a lot of people. You don't remember on 9/11. It was a crisis, and like all crises, the government went too far and then had to back off. Like the Patriot Act is just a justifying of surveilling people and violating their privacy just because of suspicion that they might be a terrorist. And we don't, later on, a lot of the tenants have been torn down. But I remember that day all too well because I was at home and I was watching TV at the time, and what I was watching was interrupted. So, gosh, shit, 24 years ago, I was in my 30s. I remember watching the second plane hit the second tower live. Like they went to the story and the one building was already burning, and then the video camera was like panning around, and all of a sudden this plane flies into the view. That famous one where the second tower is hitting the plane as hits, right? That's when I first was aware of 9/11. So I remember America came together off of that one. Like everybody was like, this is unacceptable. Okay, this is political violence, it's terrorism, it's unacceptable. And they went together on a lot of stuff. It, however, did lead to a war, okay, which ended up being, yeah, you got rid of a brutal dictator, but you know, um, with the son finishing what his father started, kind of thing. But yeah, so. Yeah. For those of you in chat, you do need to realize that YouTube, some of the stuff isn't being done by my mods. Okay, like YouTube censors certain comments. I've had it happen to me, and I really get pissed off about it because this is an adult marked as an adult channel, and I should be able to talk about adult issues. And sometimes they pick out words that are just people talking about adult stuff. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it hit a lot of us pretty hard. I still have deep emotions when I watch it. It's definitely a traumatic event. I was a pastor at the time, so I got into the pulpit next Sunday, and it's like I literally, that sermon was like, I don't know what to say. Um, we've had something happen to us, and as a nation, um, and yeah, it was bad all the way around. I still I have a trouble watching, particularly that moment when the second plane hits the tower, because I watched it live when it happened. So, yeah, 9/11 was a tearjerker for me. So it still is. all the people that died, all the senselessness of it, and a lot of people want to divorce the religion out of it. Sorry, those people were religiously motivated. Okay, they thought that they were going right to heaven because of what they were doing. So that was pretty clear. And so to say that that didn't have anything to do with it, you know, and after that, of course, a lot of things sprung up, like the new atheist movement came out of that, where, Harris and Hitchens and the rest of them kind of said, yes, this is what religion does to your brain, kind of thing. And so, yeah, it was kind of a catalyst for a very large discussion about beliefs and terrorism and other things. And so that was kind of like that. So, read reports. Yeah, me too. I've read reports of it. Been willing to sit down a few times. Rest of the hostages suffer too. Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's fucking annoying. Israel versus Palestine is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It only exists because some book said it should. Yes, and that's kind of where I stand with it too. Yankees are all over too. You just need to know what to search. The far left are violent against their own side, not the right. Yeah, that might be a valid thing. Earl and I have both experienced that, where I'm for a couple of years, I shared my thoughts, and all I was trying to do was like, let's find a way to better communicate certain things, certain ideas. And a whole bunch of LGBTQ people just trounced on me about how I didn't know what I was talking about, that it's perfectly fine. And I'm like, I am literally on your side, and you're attacking me simply because I think it could be communicated better. and Earl's faced that, where because she has some moderate views on certain subjects, and it's like, well, you're not a full blown dogmatic conservative, so I'm going to kick you out. Well, that's kind of, people like, and both of us have, I haven't received an actual death threat, but I've had a lot of people say, I hope bad things happen to you, and they're not all right wingers. Okay. So are we the bad guy for a while? Okay. Well, I hope everybody understands that there's a difference between a lot of the people. A lot of the people in the United States just want to be like most other people in the world, which is just let me live my life and leave me alone. And unfortunately, our government and the two-party system kind of causes a lot of this. We get into big fights, and it's really bad. As the gas station across the cars lined up for a mile, I was befuddled, in Ohio going berserk. Yes, because everybody was afraid, as I recall, Ron, that oil was going to disappear. And I'm like, we're sitting on one of the largest reserves of oil in the world. Even at that time, we knew that. So a lot. She believes lots of countries dislike America. That's interesting. Since the first couple of centuries, the Jewish diaspora would integrate it in Europe. Yeah, probably. It's just density. Gravity is a social construct. A social construct that has math behind it, huh? So, all right. What? I'm with you, Saint. I'm like, what? Okay. I'm back from Newark to Germany the day before. Oh, that would have put it in an interesting context. It is being forgotten. And the problem with memory, Ray, is as you get people born after the event, they don't have any direct memories of the event, and so it's very much like December 7th. Like you're going to see the same thing happen with 9/11. Like I think recently for December 7th, the last surviving member of the Arizona, that's a memorial in Honolulu, died. So there's nobody with direct memory of that day that was on the Arizona anymore. So what happens to memory after people that remember it no longer are there and new people come in that don't have any direct memories? So it's kind of a human thing. I'm sure there was a date back in the day that was infamous to some country and nobody remembers it anymore. So it happens. I'm trying to catch up, but I'm not doing very well. Saw the Vane video live. Yeah, we did. Like I was in front of my TV when it happened. I was totally, I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like it was surreal. Like it's like this doesn't happen here. Okay, switching to nights. Learn to change your sleep pattern before you get there if you can. Like stay up all night and then sleep. That's a good way to transition. So it's hard at first. I'm just going to say it. I'm now so used to it, I don't want to leave. So I like working at nights. Or a printer. We all watched it online TV. I was horrified. Boss asked if we wanted to go home. Most stayed. I remember my kids were sent home early from school that day. I was at home, so they called and said, is somebody home? Because we're sending all the kids home. I said, yeah, I'm here. So, and I think they kept the kids at school and just let them, do recess basically for the whole time. The fear was on that day that there would be more attacks and different types of attacks. And I think that probably the FAA did one of the smartest things it could have done, which is ground everybody. They immediately grounded all aircraft. And I think that was probably one of the smarter things. I mean, the Pittsburgh aircraft was definitely probably headed to Chicago, to the Sears Tower. So, and by immediately grounding everything, nothing in the West happened. Like it was like, nope, we're not having that. It's one of the dangers when you don't have good vetting in immigration. So I'm very much pro immigration, but I'm also very pro vetting before you let somebody in. And they just let people in back then. But it became annoying the other way too. Yes, there's a lot of things that happened afterwards. Your overreach of power happened afterwards. Crises are always good for that. Sometimes I feel that way, Blossom. I do. Yeah, we're more censored. I put on my channel. This is an adult stream, okay. And if it's an adult stream, we should be allowed to have adult discussions using adult words. And if your stuff, your algorithms are working, okay, it's kids shouldn't be watching this. So, and I'm an adult enough to choose which words I want to use. So, yeah, science takes you to the moon. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't justify the why reaction. In a sense, I did not. The 2 years previous to this one, I did an LGBTQ Pride Month stream where I was like talking about how LGBTQ can present itself better so that more people will listen. And that's just me being a poli-sci communication guy. I got a couple of criticisms about that. Like how dare you, we can handle this ourselves. You're not LGBTQ yourself. I don't know, does possibly poly count as being LGBTQ? Being hetero flexible, does that count as being LGBTQ? I don't know. But this year I didn't do one. I got more backlash from just trying to help them communicate better with Christians, their case. Because I know Christianity and how it's going to receive stuff. I know poli-sci and how communication between groups works, and saying, okay, how do you present yourself better so that people will listen to you is a very poli-sci thing. And so I'm like getting on it. I think this is some of the things you could do. And yeah, some of them jumped down my throat about it. That's why I didn't do it this year, because I'm just not. It's funny how some communities react that way, because it's like there's this meme where, the guy pushes a guy across the line and then says, why are you supporting their side? I'm like, dude, you just pushed him over there. I know of one woman for sure who has a trans son who, when she tried to be supportive, these people, you don't understand your son, and got all, and she's trying to be supportive of her son. And well, who used to be a daughter is now a trans male. You don't know what you, and now she says nothing. Instead of having a supporter of your cause, you now have somebody who says nothing. Okay. I think some people need to worry about how they're presenting themselves and what they're doing. It's like quit making enemies, start making allies. Saying we should be more empathic instead of saying they're dumb. Yes, I agree with you. I don't approach the right with saying they're stupid. They're not stupid. They're just self-interested. And when you understand what their self-interests are, you can deal with it better. So I got to run ahead here because I gotta leave in a few minutes. Yes, Russians. Hi, Kyle. Good to see you. I have been looking at that. I saw that on the news when I got home today, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of shitty. So, yeah, the end of World War II is closer to my birth year is now. Yeah, there you go. We're all getting old. Yeah, I don't know what would happen. I think it would be a very different response, and it might be worse, probably worse. But the FFA, this in times of crisis, the government. I think the best way to run a country is lots of freedom in peacetime, and then when war happens or something bad happens, stepping in and be able to take decisive action is not a bad thing. That's why I'm not one of those anarchist, no government people, because if that hadn't happened, I think there would have been a lot of buildings on the West Coast that got flown into by aircraft as well. And of course, those people that would have flown those aircraft and done those things exited the country very quickly. So we probably don't even know who they are. So, yeah, I get it too, man. I get it, man. Boobies make my day. They just do. They lift up my spirits, among other things. So, to mention, kids wouldn't watch this. What kind of kids want to hear about Charlie? Yeah. Maybe Fangs. Fangs is cute. Come on, man. Come on. I mean, here, let me load up an image here. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love this face? Come on. Who doesn't love this? This is a cute face. This is a kid's show. Yes, I'm a big fan. I've been a fan of boobies since I was 10. So, but there you go. I mean, why wouldn't this be considered a kid's show? I've got cartoons in it. And the irony of cartoons is that some of the first cartoons were made for adults to get past censorship because you couldn't make cinematic stuff real pictures because the censorship laws of people talking about sexual things or doing sexual things. So they made up cartoons because it wasn't real. So, and so that's how it ended up being that. So, I don't know if you could nationalize factories today to fight a war. So, I don't know if you could do that. I mean, I think the thing with war is top-down authoritarian structure during war is actually very, very beneficial. I can't argue with that. When it's not war, though, it's awful. It's authoritarian bullshit that gets in the way of a lot of peacetime activities. So, make you kid friendly. Fangs comments that somehow involves a little bluish foot. We have trouble building high-speed trains. I've lived in Houston now, Ron, and I'm telling you, I've changed my ideas about mass transportation too. Like, there's so much benefit to giving people transportation options. Like, it just cuts down on traffic. It cuts down on all this other crap that they just build more roads for. In Houston, they just build more roads, and it's induced demand. So. I knew what you meant. I know what you meant, man. All right. Well, folks, I've been on for 1 hour and 35 minutes, which is about 5 minutes longer than I normally am, but it's been a great discussion, not necessarily high point, but there are a lot of deconversion issues when you're looking at your life and you're trying to figure out how to think about certain things in your society. That's definitely a deconversion issue when you don't have an authoritarian God to lean on. And so, yes, love the discussion. Love the fact that everybody's really civil about it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so I'm going to call it a day. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. May fangs bless all of you. This cute little face is going to nibble on your heart, and get rid of all the religious corruption from your vegetables. Make sure the most holy of vegetables, your carrots, you circumcise the tip to make it even more holy. And may he richly bless you with all of his blessings from his big atheist deity heart. So thank you very much for that. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. So make sure that you take all your time, your money, your energy, and give it to yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't go to the trappings of religion and faith and all that stuff. That's a dead end. I speak from experience. And so thank you once again. Make sure you press that like button. I do subscribe. I love all those things. And I will see you next time on Saturday. I haven't really decided what we're going to talk about. I was going to react to a Charlie Kirk video, but I think I'm going to take that down and try something else. So thanks very much for your time. I'll see you all then on Saturday at 7. Right. And then I think Earl, Aslan, and myself might be doing a stream together. So we'll see then. Have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you then.